Durham Public Library. I'm Debbie Jarvis. I am the Programming and Outreach Library Assistant here. And I'm here to introduce you to, which you already know, is Pete Brown, former naval aviator and retired airline pilot who's lived in Durham since 1996. And he's going to be sharing some of his more memorable hikes. And let's welcome Pete Brown.
Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank the Durham Public Library for this opportunity. There's been a lot of great talks in here, and hopefully I can contribute to that. And a special thanks to my neighbor, Deb Jarvis, for asking me if I'd like to talk about some of my hikes. And I said, sure, why not? It gives me a chance to practice my public speaking, which I haven't done in a while. The only speaking I've done is over the PA on an airplane, welcoming people aboard and telling them to keep their seatbelts fastened and their feet off the furniture. So this is about as close as I'm going to get to a TED Talk, or a TikTok for that matter. Like I said, there's been some great presentations in here. We have the Sky Guy, John Giafforti, gave a great lecture back in March, getting ready for the eclipse of 2024. And the one that I'm most worried about following is every year the Snowflake Social. There's a woman, the Gingerbread Lady of Durham, who unveils her gingerbread here, and it's a whimsical, fantastical creation. It takes her months to think of and build and all that. But anyway, I hope I can do as well as her, because that's some nice stuff. I can only hope to do half as best because, of course, she's my better half. So. No. So this is my first time using Google Slides, so I think a lot of my notes are up here on the screen. The talk should be about 30 minutes. It's true tales from Tall Peaks. Everything is true. Maybe a little bit of embellishment, probably not. Tall Peaks, they're all over 4,000 feet, the ones in New Hampshire, and the ones out west are over 10,000 feet. So we'll get into talking about high points in each state a little bit later. They aren't quite so high, but that's a talk for another time. So this is Tenzing Norgay on top of Mount Everest. Very famous photo. He and Sir Edmund Hillary were the first men to get to the top of Mount Everest. So of course people were asking, well, Sir Edmund, why not a picture of you? And he said, well, considering that the Sherpa had never used a camera before, on top of the highest mountain in the world was not the best place to start teaching him. So you're going to see there's a lot of these I love me pictures in here, next to the sign, look what I did, I accomplished this. What I have found is I just can't capture the views that you see on some of these hikes with the phone. I tried to, and there'll be some links at the end for people who have done a really good job of capturing photographs, particularly of Mount Whitney. But if you do any search on Google for images, you'll just see some fantastic things that probably a little bit better than what I've done here with my photos. So we'll move on. So I always get asked, how do you get started with hiking? It's just like anything else, it's like biking, golfing, some physical activity. As a Boy Scout, I did some hiking in the Catskill Mountains. I grew up in New York State and got ready for a trip to Philmont Scout Ranch. What got me excited about going to Philmont Scout Ranch was, of course, John Denver in 1972 coming out with his song Rocky Mountain High. And I think that drove a lot of people to go to Denver because of the Rocky Mountains. It was something that I always got a kick out of when I was flying, to look at the Rockies, beautiful mountain range. Now, another song that came out in 1972 was a song called Dueling Banjos from the movie Deliverance, but for some reason I didn't get too excited about going whitewater canoeing after seeing that. But I did like playing the song on the guitar. So another thing is the boys, both my sons Cam and Jake, were with the Phoenix team here at Oyster River Middle School in 6th grade, led by John Parsons, and he would take the kids, the whole class, on a hike to Mount Lafayette, and it was a great experience for those kids, particularly once they pop up above the tree line and just have these great views up there. So that was a good inspiration to get the boys out there. Had a friend suggest this thing called the 4,000 footers. What is it? He explained it, the 48 mountain peaks in New Hampshire that are above 4,000 feet. You knock them off, you get the shirt, you keep log of it, you get your patch from the Appalachian Mountain Club. So there's all sorts of things you can do to check these off. So it's something to do. It's a lot of fun getting out in nature. It's very peaceful and quiet up there. Great views. Like I said, great bonding opportunity with family members, and it's fun with friends, and better than hiking alone, because a lot of the 4,000 footers I did by myself when I was younger. But now that I'm an old man, I need to go with people to keep my wife happy. So let's start off with the granddaddy of them all up here in New Hampshire, highest peak, Mount Washington. This is a nice day in Mount Washington. If you hit Mount Washington on a nice day, you're lucky, because a lot of times it's socked in, the weather can change, it can be very cold up there. So I've done Mount Washington several times, but they've all been through hikes. So the first time I did it was hiking the northern presidentials, starting to the north, going up Mount Madison, trekking across, hitting Mount Washington and coming down. Second time, hiked up, and then took the cog train down, because I'd never done that before. The boys and I, which is one of the hikes we're going to talk about, the Presidential Traverse, we did that as a through hike. So it took until 2022 to actually hike up just Mount Washington and hike back down. So that was a nice experience to do that. I went with a friend, Steve, and that was his first time going up there, although he had ski Tuckman's Ravine. So a lot of people get a big kick out of getting up there. Of course, Jake just came into the room just as this was starting, and we have a thing in the Brown family that we don't drive up the tops of these mountains. We hike up to the tops of the mountains, and now he's going to find out that around 1994, he and his brother were in the back of our Volvo, and we drove up to the top of Mount Washington Auto Road. But he didn't get out. I don't know if he got out or not, but anyway, don't tell him that. Too late. So, of course, everybody lines up to get their picture taken, Mount Washington summit. I think it's great that you can drive up to the tops of these mountains. A lot of the high points have that ability. They have a road going up. They have a great observation tower, or they have science center up on top, cafeteria, things like that. I've never said to these people, why don't you hike up? But I've had several people look at me saying, why did you hike up? So, as you can tell, well, I wasn't going to stand in line to get my picture taken because I didn't actually hike up and come back down. So, this is Jake, Cam, and Dad's Presidential Traverse. The Presidential Traverse is up in the White Mountains, the Presidential Range. You can either go south to north or north to south. We chose to go north to south. Jake was trying to get his 4,000 footers completed. The entire hike is 19 miles. You have 8,200 feet of vertical gain. That means the whole time you're hiking, you're going to gain 8,200 feet. You might go down a lot of times and recover that, but it's 8,200 feet of vertical gain, and it's about a 14-hour hike. Did I tell you that this was the Presidential Traverse under a full moon that Jake wanted to do? So this wasn't during the daytime. We started out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we were going to hike through the night under the full moon. We had a perfectly clear day, had the full moon. It was pretty warm down at the parking lot. Our plan was to leave the car at the Madison Trailhead, which is on the north side. And then when we get done with the hike, we were going to end up at the Highland Center, take the Appalachian Mountain Club shuttle back to where we left the car, and then we were going to drive home. We were going to try to do Mount Jackson. It's not part of the Presidentials. It's not named after Andrew Jackson. It's named after Charles Jackson, who was a state geologist, so he got a mountain named after him. And we were going to be using headlamps for a portion of it, but hopefully by the time we started going up Mount Washington, we wouldn't need the headlamps. So this is really nice. We got this pointer here. So this is the road up here. We got all these different trails that you can take up to Mount Madison here. You can go over to Mount Adams. So by the time we got to Mount Adams, the sun was going down. So the next point was going to be Mount Jefferson. So at that point, it's getting dark. Well, it is. Oops. Got to plan that. So Jefferson, Mount Jefferson is right here. So this is a pretty grueling hike. Jake was in pretty good hiking shape. His brother, however, not so. Dad, so-so. I had age going against me. But anyway, at this point, we decided that Tam and I were going to save our legs and take this shortcut around right here. And Jake took this up to the top and came down. So by the time we reached this point, Jake was coming down and we continued on. So we kept going up to this trail, Gulfside Trail, started our ascent up Mount Washington. And like I said, by the time we started going up Mount Washington, we could turn our headlamps off because now the full moon was up high enough that it was almost like daytime out there. It was really, really incredible. The other thing is seeing dusk, twilight falling over the valley. You get off the mountain before it gets dark because you don't want to be hiking in the dark, but we were up there. Just incredible views. Of course, very hard to take a picture of that. We got to the top of Mount Washington, and then we worked our way down to the Lake of the Clouds hut right here. There wasn't any water available up at Mount Washington. I was surprised because they do have the observatory up there. So we stopped to get some water. A gentleman came out. This must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I'm sorry, did we wake you up? He said, no. He said, I wasn't sleeping that well, and I heard this noise outside, and I thought to myself, I wonder if that's a bunch of people doing the presidential traverse under the full moon at nighttime. And I'm really glad I came out to see people actually doing that. So that kind of made us feel good doing that. Throughout the hike, certain times you look off in the distance, you would see headlamps bopping around. And so there's other people that were going out doing this at the same time as we were. Continued down the Lake of the Clouds hut. We hit Mount Monroe right here. Got to Mount Eisenhower, and things were looking kind of shaky at that point. We were supposed to continue from Eisenhower to Mount Pierce, and then the plan was to go onto Mount Jackson and then work our way back over to the Highland Center. That wasn't going to happen. Nice picture up at the top, no lines, no waiting. Somebody on Facebook saw the picture. Pete, it was 105 degrees today. I don't want to be looking at a photo of anyone with a wool cap on. I don't care if it is the summit of Mount Washington. So on top of Mount Eisenhower, Cam's had it. This is Cam right here. Jake is laughing about it because he's a little brother. So at this point, we realized that the plan has to change. We continued on to Pierce. And at that point, Jake wanted to press on to get Jackson. And I just knew you're not supposed to break up like this. We shouldn't do this. But I said to Cam, are you okay if I give you the keys to the car and you meet us at the Highland Center because we need to catch the 7 o'clock shuttle. If we don't catch it then, we're going to be here until noontime waiting for the next one. It's going to be a really long day if that happens. So he said, yeah, sure, I'll be okay. So Jake and I started hiking towards Jackson. And if I remember right, I think Jake's leg started acting up a little bit, and I just had a bad feeling about it. I said, Jake, we can come back another weekend, get Jackson out of the way. It's not a problem. I said, your brother's probably sleeping up there on top of Mount Pierce, and he's not going to make it to the shuttle, and we're going to be stuck here for a while. So finally he said, yeah, you're right, let's go back. So we started heading back, and we got to the junction that's going to take us back down to the Highland Center, and we hear this crashing sound of branches breaking, rocks coming off the trail and all that. Here comes Cam down from Mount Pierce, and he says, I fell asleep up there. So we all managed to get back to the Highland Center, hop on the shuttle, get to the car, said, let's go to McDonald's, get something to eat, I'll get a coffee. So the deal is, though, one of you has to stay awake for the ride home to make sure that I stay awake for the ride home. So about 10 minutes after eating breakfast from McDonald's, they were both asleep. So fortunately, I had experience flying all-nighters for American Airlines, so I just did what we always do, just pump the coffee and play the music loud, and we got home okay. It's one of my favorite hikes because I was with my boys, just the feeling of accomplishment, doing it at nighttime and seeing the sights like that. It's just really, really an incredible hike.
Was it in the summer?
It was in the summer. So that was it. Mountain too far, all's well that ends well, getting back to Durham. We did that. Now, of course, this is the White Mountain guide that I was using through the years. This is before Instagram came out, or Facebook. When the boys, Cam, I think, hiked Lafayette in 2001, Jake did in 2003. This is probably around 2008, even before that. So this is Bond Cliff. This is the cliff. This is a great picture. So what do we have to do? We have to recreate it. What did Mom do? Have a heart attack. So you can't miss that photo opportunity. There was another time when Jake and I did it on our own. Another great opportunity. Well, of course, if there's another rock that you can climb up and put your hands out like that and get a picture, it's another photo opportunity. This is on a different hike, just this past fall with Cam. I mean, why can't they just do a classic pose like Dad's doing here in front of West Bond, you know, hand on the hip, smile, happy, you know, or something like this, just in front of the sign. This is the day that I did the hike up to the top and came back down. I don't know where they get it from, but the apples don't fall too far from the trees. There's just something about standing on a rock and the Brahmin put their hands out like that. So, the next memorable hike, mountain marriage. So actually the couple that got married are in the room right now, Jake and his wife Kaylee. They met, and Kaylee's from Seattle. She went to BU, and they're both avid hikers, fell in love, decided to get married. So what better place to get married than on top of Mount Lafayette, which is kind of apropos, being that he hiked that when he was back in 6th grade. So the immediate family was going to do this hike, just mom and dad and the siblings. Kaylee has a brother. We brought Cam with us. They exchanged vows, which they wrote, which I'm not going to play. And they did it at the summit. Kaylee wore her hiking clothes going up, changed into her wedding dress up there. We found a nice little secluded area off the summit area. But that didn't stop everybody else from trying to witness it because they thought it was the coolest thing to be seeing a wedding up there. It wasn't official, so we were going to have to do something about that. And then we also needed to celebrate. So now that I've got my notes, let me see if I can remember all that. So to get to Lafayette, you go up Route 93, Interstate 93. And we made a stop at the rest stop. You can see we're all dressed in our tuxedos here, right? So the state trooper came by, wanted to know what was going on. We didn't do anything wrong. We were just getting ready to have a wedding up on a mountain. So he said, I can help you out. That was really nice of him to do that. There he is, holding it up there. Got him handcuffed. So now we're taking the trail that goes up there is called the Old Bridle Path, B-R-I-D-L-E, and some jokers crossing off the L. So it's the Old Bridle Path. Fun hike, nice weather. Got up to the top, and there they are, the lovely couple. It really was a very unique experience. There's the whole gang. We all had hats made up. Mama B, was that yours? Papa B. I think, I can't remember the other names and all that, but it was fun. There they are at the sign. Great picture. Hiking down, it was very easy to see Kaylee with the white dress and the flowers in the backpack. We never lost her. Down at the parking lot where we parked the car, there's a friend of the family, the boys know him as Uncle Bill. He went out and got his Justice of the Peace license so that he could marry them down here and make it official. So that's him with his paperwork there. And he also had some snacks, pastries, things like that for a little mini celebration there at the parking lot. Went back home, and of course, you have to have a shirt that you survived your son's wedding hike. Her parents, I survived my daughter's wedding hike. There are the hats. That's they did it. And they clean up nice. So this is their reception. So at this point, doing good on time. I was going to say this is going to be about maybe 30 to 45 minutes. It'll be longer if I start going off on tangents. So if I start doing that, just do this, reel me in. If somebody starts doing this, I'll go back to the subject, all right? But we'll go through the high points right now. After you get done doing the 4,000 footers, what do you do next? Well, if you really enjoy hiking, there's all sorts of options. You can do the New England 50 finest, the 100 highest, the 14ers in Colorado, or the peaks above 14,000 feet in Colorado. 52 with the view are great. That's my wife's favorite hikes because those are the ones that are less than 4,000 feet. Maybe not as arduous, but you're guaranteed to have a view when you do those hikes. Some of the 4,000 footers, you get up to the top and there's nothing to see. So, Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, John Muir Trail never really appealed to me. I'm more of a day hiker, so I didn't want to try to do something that difficult. So, maybe explore different states while hiking high points. We'd already done a couple. We'd already had Mount Washington out of the way. I don't know why this is going. I must have moved the slides around. Hang on a second there. So, okay, so we're going up back out to New Mexico now, and this is going to be Mount Elbert. I'm sorry, so this is a high point. Mount Elbert is the highest mountain in Colorado. It's about 14,300 feet. And since we're out there, we figured we may as well do Wheeler Peak in New Mexico, which is a little above 13,000 feet. So whenever you do these hikes, like I said, I'm hiking alone, so you need a search and rescue asset. And if you have a search and rescue asset, they have to know the route you're hiking, they have to know your estimated time of return, they have to call for help if not heard from within a certain amount of time of that estimated time of return. Very important to leave the asset a credit card for incidentals, emergencies, Uber, bandages, whatever. So here we are, getting ready to hike Wheeler. It's about a 9-mile round-trip hike, 2,900 feet of gain, really not that bad. I passed a group of a father and 2 kids, teenagers, on my way up, and those were the only people I saw on the hike. So we stopped and talked for a little bit. He said, "Wow, you're really hiking pretty fast." I said, "Well, getting in shape because I'm going to be doing Mount Elbert in a couple of days. I'm trying to knock out the high points." He says, "Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. We'll have a good hike." That was it. Nice. And that was the only people I saw. So anyway, this is the search and rescue asset. Always be nice to have her looking at me when I'm gasping, dying from the hike, and that'll bring me back. This is just a picture of Wheeler Peak. And until I started researching this talk tonight, I had totally forgotten that when I was in Philmont, New Mexico, I'd actually hiked a mountain called Baldy Mountain, which was 12,400 feet. Back then, I must have been 16 years old. It was part of the Rockies, so that was exciting to be doing that. But we got hit by a thunderstorm. At first, the clouds started moving in. Everybody thought that was really cool. Then you started hearing the rumble. Then you hear the cracks of the lightning. So we were able to get shelter, and we survived it. So I looked on the map and realized that this mountain was only about 25 miles to the east-northeast of Wheeler Peak, where I was. So somewhere out here was where it all began. So I'd actually made it out to the Rockies much earlier than I had remembered. After Wheeler Peak, we drove up to, well, okay, on top of these mountains, sometimes you have a nice fancy plaque like this. Sometimes you just have the sign that says what the mountain is and the altitude. Some of them, like Mount Washington, have observatories, lookout stations, and all that. They have roads going up. Wheeler Peak didn't have a road going up. So we went up to Aspen, Colorado. That's where we were going to have Trudy stay. And then the next morning, I was going to drive over Independence Pass and do the Mount Elbert hike. So because of the thunderstorms, you want to get an early start. So you leave when it's dark. You try to get off the mountain by noontime before the thunderstorms build. See where this is going? 10 miles round trip, 4,400 feet of gain, footpath all the way. I hiked all the 4,000 footers. I got out to these mountains. I was reading about a high altitude sickness, all the things that can go wrong with you. So if you acclimate, it's not bad and you follow the guidelines. But as far as the actual hike, there's no scrambling, there's no rocks, there's no boulders that you're walking on, tearing feet. This was a joy. This was a joy walking on this. I'll show you the path in a second here, but this is a full moon going across the pass. Just before the hike starts, the full moon's going down. Looked up there and said, uh-oh, snow. But it was kind of still in the summertime, so I figured it was just a dusting. It shouldn't be a problem. So this is the path right here. Just a nice little path that you walk along. One thing we hate to do is to go down when you're trying to go up, but this is just to loop around this little notch here and then back up to the top. So it's a better view of the path. You can see it's well worn. This is about maybe at least a 1.5 to 2 feet down. It's been worn down that much. Approaching the top of Mount Elbert, somebody's coming down and he yells out, "Pete! Pete, is that you?" And I'm thinking, who on earth can see me from that point and know that it's me? Well, back on Wheeler Peak, the fellow that I ran into, he had heard I was doing Elbert. He thought that was a good idea. So he and his kids were going to hike it. His daughter twisted her ankle, so they couldn't do it as a family. So they were breaking camp that morning. He said to the kids, "I'll be right back. I'm just going to hike Mount Elbert and come back down." So he was up there even earlier. So that was like, that really blew me away for the first couple of minutes trying to figure out who knew that. So these are the Rockies. Like I said, I'm trying to capture it, but just mountains everywhere you go, very rugged, old mountains, eroded, some snow up there. Rocky Mountain High, finally, after all those years of listening to John Denver, it came together. So these are the pictures, the I Love Me pictures. You see all the people that are up there. There was a couple that were smoking cigarettes up there at 14,300 feet, getting their fix. People, letting people know that they were up there, or whatever they were doing on their phones. That's fine. Just posing a little bit more. There were some other people up there who were nice, so I was by myself. They knew I wasn't very good at selfies. I didn't even try it, but to get that in the background, that was very nice. So, as I'm coming down from Mount Elbert, the clouds are starting to move in. Figured I'd get off the mountain. Because the mountain isn't as steep, you can walk down, you can go down pretty fast, and what that does is it makes it easier on your legs, because if you've hiked in the White Mountains, going up kills them, coming down destroys them, because you're just dead and you're trying to hold yourself back because it's so steep. But here, you can kind of walk fast, and it is easier on your muscles. As I'm going down, there's a couple coming up, and the man says, excuse me, how far to the top?" I said, "I don't know, about maybe 30 minutes or so." And he says, "I noticed you were hiking down really fast. Is there weather moving in?" I said, "No." I said, "I left my wife in Aspen, and I just got a call from my credit card company, and there's all these charges. I got to get over there and stop." The guy looked at me like, the woman standing behind him was like, "Nah." So, kept going, got to the parking lot, and you could hear the rumbling of thunder, so there were people still up there. They're trying to get back down, so the timing was pretty good there. So that was accomplished. Now, who's this? Who did he say? "Who's this, Bob?" Ed Zeke. Bob Fay came all the way down from the Portland, Maine area. He and I were in Navy flight school together, and we flew P-3s up in Brunswick, different squadrons. He just retired from Delta Airlines recently, and I retired from American. Ed was in flight school with us also. So when we got done, I'm flying out of Denver, and he's the captain. He was my roommate up in Brunswick. It was just another one of those small world things. So I was expecting the other guy that was on top of Mount Elbert to be on the airplane too. "Hey guys, we having a party?" So as a pilot, you get jump seat privileges, so I was able to ride up in the cockpit with them and get caught up with him. So of course, when you do that, you have to have fun, right? Let's see, can you fly? Use the force, Zeke. Use the force. And then eventually, this is landing in Boston, landing to the west as the sun's going down at the end of the trip coming home. So just another memorable trip. So we talked about the high points with family and friends. As you can see, it's better than hiking alone, especially the older I get. You read about accidents happening all the time up in the White, somebody just losing their footing and twisting an ankle and needing help down. So it's good to have somebody else to hike with. Clingman's Dome in Tennessee, that was a hike that Jake and I did. He was going to school in Nashville, and that one ended up being a little bit longer than we thought. We tried it earlier, and we couldn't find the trailhead, so we ended up actually in the parking lot. You'll see in a minute here that there's an observation tower up there. I said, "Jake, we're up here already. We may as well go look at it." He said, "No, I'm not getting out of the car. We don't drive up to the tops of these mountains." So we had to go back and do it, the hike like this, and it ended up being something like 24 miles. I think it was 27 years. It was the longest hike that I've done. A portion of the Appalachian Trail at Clingman's Dome, the highest peak in Tennessee. This is the view from out there. Otherwise, you'd just be looking at trees. That was nice. This is on top of Mount Marcy in New York, up by Lake Placid. This is Mount Mansfield in Vermont. We did these hikes just a couple of years ago. This is Stowe ski area. We also did Katahdin a long time ago. So we'd already knocked out some high points. And he's a great hiking buddy, so he's up for it. And now I've got a daughter-in-law too. Pretty soon we're going to have a grandson who's going to be hiking with us, right? But he's only 15 months old, so that's not going to happen for a while. He'll be in the backpack. Black Elk Peak, this is out in South Dakota. Black Elk is the highest peak east of the Rockies. So east of the Mississippi, the highest peak is Mount Mitchell in North Carolina, then Clingman Stone, and then Mount Washington. Cam, my other son, lives out in the Chicago area, so he met me at O'Hare. We flew out to Rapid City. We hiked Black Elk Peak. It was a 3-day whirlwind trip. I deleted some of the pictures, so ignore that short-term memory loss item right there. But we'll go through some of these pictures here real quick, and I'll explain this. So anyway, this is what they built on top of this peak. It used to be called Harney Peak. The Lakota Indians wanted to have it changed to Black Elk Peak for one reason. Harney killed a bunch of women and children Native Indians, Lakota probably. So Black Elk was a Lakota medicine man, so they got the name changed. In the meantime, they built these observation towers. Right here you can see prayer flags. You're supposed to be respectful of those. The Lakotas put those up because the mountain is sacred to them. There he is. This is called Little Devil's Tower in South Dakota. Now right across in Wyoming is the real Devil's Tower. So this led to our talk about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The Visitor Center, I was back here in 1978 on a cross-country trip. The Visitor Center is so built up now, a nice walking path going all the way around the tower. It's really incredible. So this was a nice opportunity for him to see this. What else are they going to have in the Visitor Center? They're going to have an alien, right? Mount Rushmore, he got to see Mount Rushmore. But this was the one that really blew me away because we went out to the Badlands, and out there is the Minuteman Missile National Historic Site. I think a lot of us know about the missile silos out there, the Cold War. This place had the whole history, why this was created, what the Minuteman missile could do, and all that. My son had never heard of it. Now, I'm not faulting the school system. I guess there's only so much they can teach, but he was just fascinated when he found out that this was all going on. In addition to this site, you can actually go to a command center. This is one of the silos. You have to make a reservation. You can go down below, check out the control center. And this kind of cracked me up. This is in the visitor center. Worldwide delivery in 30 minutes or less, or your next one is free. We won the Cold War. We had him on the ropes, and we let him go. So, but this is the kid that we took to the Bronx Zoo when he was 5 years old. And of all the animals you could see, he's in his stroller, and he starts screaming, "Squirrel! Squirrel! It's a squirrel!" It's like, okay, so this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to go feed the prairie dogs. So why not? Why not? This is the highest point monument in New Jersey. Anybody want to take a guess what it's called? High Point. 1,800 feet. This was with the hike with one of my best friends growing up back in Red Hook, New York. He had seen the movie A Walk in the Woods with Robert Redford and Nick Nolte. Got him wanting to do some hiking, so we did the Delaware Water Gap, hiked the Appalachian Trail, and managed to get over to this one and knock this high point off. So that was a fun trip. We're in front of the monument there. This is a friend from college. This is in Georgia, Grasstown Bald. We hiked up, but as you can see, you can drive into the parking lot, but you still have a ways to go. So they get a little bit of work out of you to get up to the top. And from up there, it's an incredible view of the mountains. And another one of those I Love Me posters. This is in South Carolina, Sassafras Mountain. Another one you drive up to. We hiked up, but you can drive up. And the nice thing about this one, it's right there on the North Carolina and South Carolina border, so they have the line right there. This is another road trip that we did. We brought the wives this time. This is just when we're getting ready to start singing Bohemian Rhapsody, like the scene from Wayne's World. We're in the car singing and all that. Couldn't get it on video, though. So once again, just an opportunity. We did a lot of driving up, and then it's about a mile walk to the actual high point in Pennsylvania. But this is a trip that we did in the fall. We knocked out Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Kentucky in about a week's period. We just spent some time in Penn State, our alma mater, so that was kind of nice. But on the way to Mount Davis, we actually got to go to Shanksville and 9/11 Memorial for Flight 93. And that's the thing. These are like destination high points sometimes. We did Humphreys Peak, Trudy and I, out there in Arizona. So Flagstaff is incredible. You got Sedona, you got the Grand Canyon, you got Meteor Crater, you got Winslow, Arizona, where you see the girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, but she wasn't slowing down to take a look at me. Interesting thing about Shanksville, I'd like to share this with people. This is an observation lookout right here, looking down on the crash site, which is over this area. When you first get there, you see something this way to the flight path. This is the actual flight path that Flight 93 took. And they said that it was inverted at this point before it went into the ground. Another one of those memorials you just look at, and you go inside, they have they have the recordings of people from the airplane calling. It was really, really incredible to see it. Very, I guess somber is what it is. Just like going to Normandy or going to the 9/11 Museum in New York City. It really is. It was really a very well done memorial. So we got to see that. Sometimes the weather isn't good. This was High Point in Maryland. My friend, we called him Pops back in college because he wore glasses with the flip down shades. So somebody said, "You look like somebody's Pop." So he's been called Pops all of his life. But he blew out his boot on the way down, so we had to repair that and buy him some new boots. So these things happen. West Virginia, another one, drive up, and you're there. But this is Mount Greylock in Massachusetts. This one you can drive up, but you can also hike up. So we started hiking up. It got dark. We started hiking down. What were we using? Our flashlight, our cell phones? I think we were using the iPhone lights. We weren't quite prepared for nighttime. It was a nice, easy path. And this is truly on top of Mount Mansfield, way back when, before Jake and I did it. All right, this is the biggie right here, Mount Whitney. All right, I forgot to look up all the things that Jack LaLanne would do to celebrate his birthday. But that's what I'm thinking. Turning 60, what can you do? Not getting any younger, right? So why not hike Mount Whitney? And anybody I told about this said, "Oh, I got to start thinking of something to do when I'm 60." I said, "Yeah, why not?" So practice hikes are important. You need a permit to hike Mount Whitney now because it used to get so crowded. They're having a problem with erosion, litter, all that stuff. So they have a lottery. I won the lottery and I got a day permit. If you don't win the lottery, you can go out, drive all the way out to Lone Pine, where you can access the trailhead. And the day before, sometimes they have permits that they can give you for a day hike, but it's very good that you have it ahead of time. This I just read with my research for this, 50% success rate for day hikers. That's either because you bail out, because it's difficult. It is a long hike. It's a 14-hour day, 21 miles round trip, 6,600 feet vertical gain. But also the weather. If there's thunderstorms up there, you don't want to do it. Now you're talking about getting hurt or killed. We acclimated at Mammoth Mountain because that's about 9,000 feet. So acclimation. You want to get to a higher elevation, like in Flagstaff, we're at 7,000 to hike a 12,000-foot peak. Here we're at 9,000 feet, and a couple of hikes were up above 10,000 feet. So it gets your body ready for going up to 14,500 feet. Why is there a lamppost here? I'll get to that. Slow and steady gets it done with perfect weather. And these are the altitude-related illnesses that scared the heck out of me when I was researching this trip. Acute mountain sickness, high-altitude cerebral edema, high-altitude pulmonary edema. I wish I had stuck with it with med school, but I didn't. So all I know is that if any of this stuff starts happening, you're supposed to just turn back, drink lots of water, get a lot of food, keep your energy up, and acclimate is the big thing to do. Also, preparing for the hikes. These guys, they helped me. Look at these guys. They've really, really pushed me. It was an arduous hike, as you can see. But this is just Mount Major for a warm-up. The big one was with my neighbor here, Dan Eckerson, who I just found out recently goes by Eck. I've been calling him Dano since he was my neighbor back in 1996. But we did a through hike up in the White Mountains, and they covered 19 miles, 4,000 feet of elevation gain. We started up to the north and did Zealand and did all the barns and came out of the Kangamangas, pre-positioning cars and all that. So the only way to prepare for a major hike is another major hike. You want to get ready to go hiking, you can do all the squats and all the leg work you want to do, but you got to get out there and actually hike. It's really get in hiking shape. As I said, one foot in front of the other, and as I would say to the boys, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So, this is the SAR asset, search and rescue, going out for a nice little hike here, nice leisurely hike. What's the buzz, buzz, buzz? Well, at one point, we were trying to get back to where the shuttle was going to take us to the parking lot where we left the car. So we hear this buzzing sound, and we don't know what it is. And I'm looking at this hedge tunnel that we have to go through. I said, oh my gosh, I said, I think there's bees in there. They weren't there when we came through, so they must be active now. So we start walking slowly, and we don't hear the buzzing sound anymore. And then we get into the hedges, and this buzzing gets really loud. We get out to the other side, and we're looking for the bees. We can't see the bees anywhere. And Trudy looks up and goes, it's a drone. Somebody's got video out there. I looked on YouTube for the idiot couple being chased by the drones thinking it was bees, but couldn't find it. But you're not supposed to be flying drones in national parks. I can't remember if this is a national park or not. But, you know, I always think of like the song Rocky Mountain High, the serenity of clear blue mountain lake. Just the terrain out there, so different from here. It's a really beautiful, beautiful country. He climbed Cathedral Mountains. That was the other thing that got me. There's nothing that looks like a cathedral like this. And I saw this, it's like, once again, you study it, you realize you're not hopping across the top of those, you're hiking behind them. But anyway, Mount Whitney was awesome just looking at it. The last couple of days before we got here, there were thunderstorms hitting it. So I was really thinking I wasn't going to be able to accomplish it. Lucked out with the weather, I left the hotel probably at 3 o'clock in the morning, got to the trailhead, started hiking at 4. It's dark, got headlamps on, but then I look up and I see what looks like a lamppost, and it was a guy who had one of these newer headlamps that was so bright it was lighting up the whole area that we were going. And I said, I got to get one of those. So eventually I did. But just like with the reverse of the presidential reverse, the sun starts coming up. This is one area. This is kind of out of sync. This is higher up. This is called the 99 Switchbacks. Now, I wasn't in the mood to count them while I was hiking. I was too busy putting one foot in front of the other. But they say there are 99 switchbacks here to get up to this, get through this portion here. These are called windows, right here. And if you look back here, it's these areas right here that they're talking about that you can look through. And when you get to the other side, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at down towards Lone Pine, which is where we're staying. That's about 4,000 feet elevation. The trailhead starts at 8,000 feet, and you're going up to 14,500. Some people were sleeping in their cars that night and attempted the hike. Other people backpacked in, and they packed and went up and slept at 10,000 feet to get ready for the hike. They leave their packs and do the hike with a lighter pack. So there's different strategies for doing this. But I did the day hike, of course. This is in the morning as the sun's coming up, and you just kind of make out this lake here. And coming down is a whole different thing because you're looking a different way, but the lighting is different. So that's the lake coming down around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. As I said, there's a slide that I put up at the end, and it has a link for somebody who took some really great pictures of Mount Whitney to give you a much better feel of what it's like. Because even if I showed you all my pictures, this guy did a better job. So this is just very rugged terrain. The John Muir Trail goes by Mount Whitney. A lot of people do Mount Whitney either at the beginning or at the end of doing the trail. Just looking down. Some of the trails are so narrow that you do have to just lean up against the side and let other people pass by if they're coming back from the mountain or if they're hiking that fast to get through. So this is the sign up on top. This is the Smithsonian Institute cabin, and this was built for high altitude research, also to study the planet Mars, I think it was. It was built in 1908, if my memory serves me right. It's not weatherproof, nobody stays in there, but there is a book, a signing sheet along with it you can sign. Then you get the sign that says Mount Whitney, and another couple were nice enough to take a picture of me with the sign here. Anybody see the movie Caddyshack? You wear a hat like that, you get a free bowl of soup. Yeah. I needed something to cover my ears during the hike to keep the sun off of them. Because that's another thing they said is that the sun's beating down on you when it's clear like that. So this was an incredible hike, one of my favorites. But all these hikes that I've done by myself, I really wish I had other people to do it. So that's why it's so much fun now doing high points or hiking with other people, so they can see what we're seeing and enjoy it as well. So I think that might be the, oh, jeez, there he is, poses out, but got the rays there. So, like I said, apples don't fall too far from the tree. So this is the slide. If you want to take a photo of it, that's probably the best thing, because if you take a photo and try to press it on your camera, it's not going to do the hyperlink like that. You have to type this all in. But these are the photographs of Mount Whitney that somebody did when they went hiking. This is just all about mountain hiking in New Hampshire. I came across this. It's got the 4,000 footers, the 52 with the view, things like that. So if you look up White Mountains Presidential Traverse, or if you look up Mount Elbert and just do Google images, you're going to find some great pictures there. Another website, if anybody has got the, is Jonesing to do the high points, is the High Point Guide. That gives you information as far as where all the high points are, how do you get there. Some of the high points are just off the side of the road. Jeremont Hill in Rhode Island. You pull up to the side of the road, you walk 250 yards, and you gain about 10 feet. There's a boulder there, and it says High Point, Rhode Island. So a lot of them are drive-ups like that. Others you can drive up to the top. Some of them you have to hike. The apps that I use on my phone when I'm hiking would either be All Trails, or Gaia GPS is another one that I find very handy, because wherever you are, you can see your trail position, and you can see that you are on the trail. Or if you think you might be lost, we'll give you the direction point. You can see where the trails are. All Trails has more information as far as driving there, where to park, times, people sending reports and all that. So there's just a wealth of information out there for hiking. So I believe that's it. So I'd like thank you for letting me talk about this. This was thank you. It's fun going through the photos from way back when, and when I first started, just at 47 minutes right now, 48. I had to cut so much out of this because I was having so much fun. All the stories I was going to tell about other people and hikes and all that. And anyway, maybe, as my wife said, I should write a book. But I'll leave you with this last one. It's a teaser. You'll have to wait to hear about that story. So anyway, that's the World Series trophy from when the Red Sox broke the jinx and won the World Series back in 2004, Pete, was it? 2004? No. Oh, I got it up here, right? So anyway, just real quick. I was in Orlando, getting ready to fly up to Boston, and there was a gentleman who had gotten off the airplane. So one of the flight attendants said, Pete, the guy just got off the airplane. We don't know if he's coming back, if he left something on the airplane or what. On a 757, you go through the door, and there are seats right here at the 2L door. So I suspected he probably just left to, not have people stepping on his feet. So I went up into the departure lounge, said, sir, are you going with us to Boston? He says, yes. I said, did you come up here so people wouldn't step on your feet? He said, yes. I said, all right, come on, we're going. So he goes, sits down, I start walking to the cockpit, and the flight attendant says, Pete, look what he's got, look what he's got. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's got a gun, he's got a bomb. I just let the guy back on the airplane. And I turn around and the flight attendant says, he's got the trophy, he's got the trophy. I said, who's got the trophy? And she points me back to the seat, and there's this big fella, security person with the Red Sox. The World Series trophy had its own seat. It was in the little row, strapped in. I go back there. I said, is that the World Series trophy? He goes, yeah. And he hands it and shoves it at me. And all I'm thinking, oh my God, if I drop this, Vince is back on. I'll be the new Babe Ruth, right? Yeah. So I said, well, that's incredible. If I promise that it's going to be smooth in flight, can you let the people come up and take a look at it? He says, yeah, sure, no problem at all. So everybody on the airplane who wanted to got a chance to see it. Probably got a chance to hold it and get their picture with it. This guy was incredible. He's getting off the airplane, and I'm saying goodbye to him. I said, man, I wish I had a camera. Takes the trophy once again, shoves it at me, sits us down. He took a picture of the co-pilot, took a picture of me. He says, what's your email? sent me a picture that he took. So he goes out onto the jet bridge. The cleaners are there. Their eyes light up, so they're all looking at that. I leave. I'm walking out of the airport, and I see a couple of state troopers. And I said, hey, troopers, you might want to go down to gate 34. Oh, yeah, why is that, Captain? I said, it's the World Series trophy. And they looked at each other like a couple little kids and started running down. So when I got the picture from the fella, I told him it was incredible. He said, listen, people waited a long time for the Red Sox to win the World Series. So we were going to make sure that anybody who wants to get a picture with it, wants to hold it or whatever, we're going to make that happen. So that was really, really impressive to hear about that. So.
Hey, Pete, since you're from New York originally, isn't that like a double curse? I mean, I'm from New York myself, you know.
I know. I was never a Yankees fan, Chuck.
Okay.
I was Mets. Well, actually,
I'm a sportsman, so
I was at-
inform at the end. when
there you
I
go.
won.
We'll put that back up in case anybody didn't get that. But anyway, once again, thanks. It's been a lot of fun researching this, and you go into the Google and you find things, and you can ask me questions. I've got all the numbers confused and all that. And don't believe what my wife's shirt says. I don't need Google. My husband knows everything. That's not true. But then, once again, thank you very much.